Dustin McKay here. Today I'm going to be painting a little crab for a children's book. I'll be painting in Photoshop using a Wacom Cintiq. I hope you enjoy the process. So this is a bit of a process video on how I like to paint, or at least for this particular project, how I'm going to paint this style. Whether it's a series of illustrations for a pitch deck, whether I'm doing something like an editorial illustration, or in this case, I'm doing a children's book. Once you kind of hone in on that style, you develop a nice process that I'm not saying it's like total assembly line, but you kind of get into some rhythms. And so I've kind of set up my palettes and my brushes and things in a way that will really maximize my time and get me through these paintings quicker. So I'm spending more time painting and less time pressing buttons. So I'm just going to quickly paint crab here and kind of show you my process. And then it's not my process for every time I paint. It's just for this book and these illustrations. This is the style that I'm working in. Okay, cool. So there's my drawing. I've put in my flats. So I'll go ahead and just hide the sketch. And if you come and look at my crab layers, I've got all the different layers broken onto their own, all the parts onto their own layers. And that allows me to quickly click and let's see, grab the layer. I find sometimes Photoshop doesn't always go to the layer you click on, but most of the time it does. So here I have the body of the crab. And before I actually start painting, and I'm going to use clipping masks, I want to roughen up the edges of these so it has a more natural feel. This is in the overall composition of the page, it's a fairly small crab. So my resolution isn't maybe as high as I'd love it to be, but it's already pretty big, so it's more than necessary for this book. So I'm just going to kind of drag my textural brush here around the edges, and that will take this really graphic, clean. I use lasso tools to make these and kind of loosen up those edges, right? So I'm just going to go through and do each one of these. Maybe I'll have to make the brush a little smaller at times. Sometimes I'll turn on smoothing a bit and maybe increase the flow because I want to make this as much of a one-stroke process as possible. I don't want to be going over these shapes. I don't have to like remake my stroke over and over again. So here we go. Looking for, I like the kind of variation when things get out of, say, perfection, and that's okay, right? It doesn't need to be perfectly the same roughness on all edges. And then it starts to look, once again, more of a filter than it does real painting. Cool, so we got some teeth here for crab. Definitely like to loosen those up a little bit. Get into these claws. There we go. Go to the next one. I'm just holding Alt and clicking on the layer, and that's what on the eyeball of a layer, and that's what isolates that layer so that I can work just on that. Oops, here we go. Let's go to another one. That one did not. Cool. So like I said, I want to get through this as quick as I can. You'll see, I'll probably point this out again more, but on the left-hand side, I have my color palette, and I have all the colors for my main characters labeled, and that makes it very easy to be consistent. It took me a couple of paintings before I was able to really finalize some of those colors, and there's no telling, when I'm all done, that I might want to make some final color adjustments. But it took a few to really figure out something I was kind of confident that I could go forward with and use it on every page as a starting base color. All right, we're almost there. So having the smoothing on just a little bit, I usually don't go more than, say, 30%. See that I got it 29. If there's some really delicate or really smooth, clean line I'm trying to draw, maybe I'll drop it a little bit, but I don't need any smoothing on these ones or any rough edges. All right, these guys can just go. The reason why I was isolating those layers, by the way, is something I can't see those shapes, right? The silhouettes get lost in the sea of red. So that's kind of why I did that. All right, and now we get the eyelids. There we go. So I need to be able to see these edges. There's been times in the past where I have a character like this where there's a lot of the same color on top of each other. What I'll do is I'll make very slight variations of red on each shape, and that just gives me some differentiation to easily see what's happening. By the end, those couple percent shifts in color and hue don't really matter for the final image. Okay, cool. All right, pretty good. Now we got some looser edges here. I've decided that the lighting for this moment is going to be kind of front left-hand side, maybe side lit. I like to kind of pick the largest, simple but large shape here. So I'm going to go ahead and isolate. Well, do I need to isolate it? No, I just need to lock the pixels now. I'll go to my Crab Light paint layer, and you can kind of see there's my shape. So we're going to go ahead and put a little, kind of find the terminator for that. Okay, and then I'll find sort of a half sort of layer here. Yeah, we got to get a nice little cast shadow from that arm. Could be cool. And these will be a little more half-toned. There, now I can kind of... His, it wasn't necessarily intentional for his shape. I didn't like look at a pink eraser and get inspired by it, but just as I was drawing, it kind of started turning into a pink, like those old pink erasers that you probably remember playing with or using in school, grade school. So yeah, that's kind of his overall shape. Okay, let's see. Let's zoom out a little bit, take a look. A bit hot in terms of too much color. Sometimes if I want to just tone it down, I like the texture on here. I don't need more texture, but I'll just take an airbrush and sort of tone down some of this. There we go. Go back to my light texture layer. Maybe I find a little spot where a specular highlight might start to hit. Cool. So I do like to get a pretty good amount of lighting on this. I'll kind of do a little under lighting with a bit of a desaturated red color. Kind of keeps that alive. Maybe the upper lip. I'll put just a little bit of light here in the lower lip as well. These legs are in the way. They need to move. I've got these legs in the back. All right, let's just make a quick adjustment. All these legs need to go behind the body. So I select it, I copy, delete, Command Shift V. That puts the leg, paste it right back in place on a new layer. Oops. One more. Copy, delete, Command Shift V. So now I can take these 3 layers, Shift, oops, 1, 2, come on, 1, 2, 3, and we'll just move them back. Command left bracket. There we go. Now we're behind. Kind of maybe want to bring them over a little bit. Rotate them out. One there. Let's keep them. Yeah, that feels a little better. Okay, now I can see what I'm doing. Let's go back to this layer. Let's get a little bit more of that underlining. So when in doubt, I always just kind of go for sort of a fill light. I'll just kind of grab, or a bounce light, the color itself. I'll go lighter in value and then inch over towards gray a little bit, and that gives me a good cooler tone to work with. Cool. So this shell over here is going to be another nice large item that's easier in terms of its overall form. So I'll pick my light crab value here and sort of just find this cylindrical, there it is, type of shape, or sorry, egg shape, not cylindrical. Okay, and then I get back under there and I'll put that little bit of bounce light kind of come off the ground. So I'm just kind of making a nice egg. I'll do the same thing on this other side. So kind of finding the terminator and then getting some in-between values. Just generally shade. Right here I might want to put a little bit of a cast shadow from his eyeball or his sort of like his head. And that could be a nice touch there. Already thinking a little bit about that lighting and how it might bring certain aspects of this character in and out of light. I always like getting things in and out of shadow. It gives that dimension. Okay, here's this side over here. Just a cylinder. So we're gonna get some in-between values. We don't need to do as much of a fill light here, but we'll try. Bounce light, fill light. Just depends where it's coming from, right? There's that one there. Cool. This guy didn't get one. Let's go underneath here. Oops. Maybe a little in-between value on this one, right here too. Okay, now we'll get to these legs. This should be pretty quick. All right, where are we? And I've kind of been doing a little bit of a split on some of these legs to put a little, almost like a part line. It looks pretty good. All right, next one. A little less details, we move back. Just kind of more suggestion, not thinking that I have to do every little detail. Okay, cool. So this side, you know, we could probably put a little bit of a grayish tone over here on each one of these. A little bit there. I might play around with a warmer bounce light in here, so let's grab that. There we go. Yeah, I'll kind of buy that for now. Okay, let's get into these eyes. Lock the. Here, let's kind of view a little bit of a. These are spheres as well. Put a nice sort of thick eyelid. Okay, now let's bring a little bit of bounce light on this side and right here as well. To kind of thicken up the shadow underneath this, I think. Let's get to these. These are definitely going to be like some nice big spheres. I'm going to do a little bit of reverse painting, so I'm going to start with kind of putting everything in shadow first, and then I'll bring out the light gently. Okay, now let's do some shading here on these irises. Oops. This guy here. Okay, let's bring in a little specular highlight on top of them all and just see if that works. A little extra. There we go. Cool, let's do these stalks. Get some eye stalk going. Okay, now it's pretty good. Okay. Let's bring in a couple of specular highlights to kind of separate. Oops. Create a new layer for this and just kind of spread some highlights around. Take the smoothing off at this point. Don't need that. That might be enough. Oh, teeth. Those teeth are way too bright. Let's knock them down. This is another one I like to kind of do a lot of reverse. Paint it dark and then bring out the lights a little more. Okay, let's do some detail on these crab shells. So I have a little, oops, let's go actually clip those. So just hold Alt, do my clipping mask. Let's turn on my drawing. I think I had this drawn. It might help me get these right the first time. There we go. Let's bring that up a little more. Too dark. Turn the smoothing on just a little bit. There we go. I like to have a little bit of separation here in the claws. Make a fun shape there with that. Okay, and then this one. There, that's pretty good. Ah. There we go. Let me bring out a little bit edge lighting on those just to bring them alive a little more. All right, cool. Well, that was pretty good for now. Wait, I know I just forgot. Maybe I need a little bit, oops, more on these stalks here. Something medium value. Has to be darker than the body. All right, here we go. Just get this smidgen darker. Needs to feel more in the shadow. Cool. Well, that will look great. I think once we get the once I get more of the pieces in there, I get some more lighting. I'm kind of thinking I might need a little bit more shadow. Well, maybe not. Maybe the shadow here on this body needs to follow more this way. And then would it kind of go across this leg here? Give me that separation elsewhere. There you go. Let's see. Yeah, that feels pretty good. So, you know, soften that edge of that shadow just a little bit here, so that it reads as a shadow and not a different object. Cool. All right. Crab done. Boy, not quite done. So hopefully that was helpful for you. Try to do as quick as I could and kind of show you a little bit about process. You know, we've got colors here, palette, layers, all this. I don't name all my layers. I just sort of put them all in a, the only thing I name is the group, and then everything else underneath is pretty self-explanatory. One little tip here I'll show you is you can change in Photoshop how you view these. So you might want to do on your panel options to show a large thumbnail, and then say show the layer bounds. What that does is it puts only the pixels that are on that layer into view, and it makes it much easier to know what layer you're on. So when you're kind of just clicking around on things, it goes and you can kind of go, oh, and you can notice mistakes like, oh, I've actually painted the light for that eye on a different layer. So, all right.